Hey guys, welcome back to another segment of Bookends. He's Jason. This is our buddy Teaser. I'm Chucky. Jay, I'm excited, man. It's the first full week of pro football. We just finished our first full week of college football. Some super exciting games. I mean, that game Sunday night between Florida State and Notre Dame was just unbelievable. The way Mackenzie Milton came in off the bench and, the catastrophic injury he had a few years ago and the way he rallied Florida State back when they were down 18. The way that Tulane kind of played against Oklahoma and that Georgia-Clemson game that I know it's early in the season. We know how good Alabama looked, but that Georgia defense looked really good on Saturday.
No, they've shown they're going to be in this potentially in this playoff. Alabama did what they were supposed to do, kind of embarrassed Miami. We saw an Oregon play a tough Fresno State team. I mean, it was all around the country. It was great to get college football back, and it was great to see fans in the stadium. Wisconsin, Virginia Tech, those stadiums were absolutely rocking, and we look forward to it again this week, and hopefully we'll see fans in all the NFL stadiums as well.
I think when we were watching together the Virginia Tech game and when they played, the Welcome Sandman back, I mean, just the atmosphere of the crowd, and then Florida State with, the tomahawk chop. I mean, it was so much fun. You could just see that fans were glad to be back, and the crowds in the book and kind of the atmosphere and the handle. I think it was great. It was a lot of fun. But before we dive into pro football, guys, which we're going to talk about, it's week one, we got to talk about last man standing. I mean, these are our signature contests. Both are back this year, college and pro. 100,000 guaranteed in college, 150 guaranteed in the pros. Sign up by 8 p.m. Saturday night for college, by 9 a.m. Sunday morning for the pros. Same format as in the past. $25 entry fee, 4 entries for $100. You get the bonus of 5th entry free. You win and you move on. It's just like the college basketball tournament. You lose and you go home. You can use the same team every week. You can change teams. You can skip a team week to week. But just whatever strategy you like, it's fun to listen to it.
Huge bragging rights. The spreads are already out there. People are turning in their picks, getting signed up. So like Chucky said, get signed up today and get your part of that last man standing.
You could even play the first game, which is the Cowboys-Bucks game. It kicks off with the defending champs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Tom Brady against the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. Brady, the GOAT, is undefeated in his career, I believe 5-0 against the Cowboys. They have 22 starters back this year, which is almost unheard of in professional football. You look at the weapons he has, and I think when you look at both these two teams, Brady against Prescott, these are two pretty dynamic offenses. They both have a trio of wideouts. I'm going to touch on the Cowboys first, and I'll let you jump in on the Bucs. But you think about the Cowboys. Dak Prescott, he had the shoulder injury. He's coming back from the leg injury. He has the new contract. But think about that wide receiver core of CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup, and a trimmed-down Zeke. I mean, if he's healthy and that offensive line can get healthy, we know that Collins and Martin are a little bit banged up. That can be a dynamic offense. In 5 games last year, CeeDee Lamb, if you look at that over the course of the year, he would have been a top 10 receiver for Dak Prescott. So pretty dynamic offense there, but Tampa's is just as good with their trio of wide receivers.
Yeah, and we see Tampa over in a touchdown favorite here in the opening
Numbers
game.
Going up.
And, a lot of action on Tampa. I think that from a Cowboy standpoint, the offense isn't going to be the problem. It's going to be on the back end and the defense, and particularly why in this matchup Tampa is such a big favorite is because they do have the receivers to kind of exploit that Dallas secondary, and obviously Antonio Brown, Gronk, Evans, Godwin, Scotty Miller, and then a couple different running backs. And the reports out of camp from Bruce Arians himself is that Antonio Brown is the Antonio Brown that we saw 3 or 4 years ago when he was getting that great separation in Pittsburgh. So if Antonio Brown's back to being his true self, that could spell real problems for the rest of the NFC. And obviously we all know who Tom Brady is and what they're going to do. So if the Bucs can come out here and play turnover-free football and score some touchdowns, I think the only way for Dallas to probably stay in this game is to see a whole lot of Ryan Suckup and hope that they're kicking field goals. The Bucs are kicking field goals to stay in this game. But like we said, a lot of public action, a lot of action on the Bucs in this game.
I think it's going to be a fun game to watch because of those two offenses, which should be really, really interesting. We're going to touch on some other games too, and that's the game that kicks it off. Don't forget, it's the first game. And there's kind of an interesting stat, though. If you look over the last, I think, 10 years or so, in all of sports, the defending champ, when they come back for that first game or ring ceremony, are only about 50-50. So, looking at a big point spread here, maybe there's some value with the Cowboys tonight. A couple of other big games, Cardinals and Titans, two teams playing out of conference. Both have playoff aspirations. Close to 73% of the tickets are on the Titans in this game. I think an interesting kind of tidbit here is that two of the best receivers in pro football, who had both spent their entire careers with one team, A.J. Green with the Bengals, Julio Jones playing with the Falcons, both now are on new teams. Titans, Cardinals. They had a new dynamic to those two teams, but pretty much one-sided action so far on the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, and obviously they were the kind of talk of the offseason with the acquisition of Julio Jones. The division that they're in, obviously the Colts are going to be competitive, but with Houston and Jacksonville, Tennessee's looking like they're going to be able to potentially run through this division. Obviously, A.J. Brown, you add the beast in the backfield, and Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill's really proven himself to be a winner. Kind of a short line here with them being at home, but again, on the backside of the defense, Tennessee's a little bit questionable. This is the second highest total on the board at 52. Obviously, Arizona does have that ability to score. You talk about Hopkins, Adden Green. They've got Christian Kirk, and there's going to be a guy that you probably don't know a lot about, but coming out of Purdue, they've got a young rookie, Rondell Moore, who's going to be kind of used all over the field. So we'll see if Kyler Murray continues to use him as a weapon, and they get James Conner from the Steelers. They've added him to the backfield to go along with Edmonds. So a lot of weapons all over the field, and that's why you see the total so high in this game.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun game to watch. I think both these teams kind of have those playoff aspirations. I think it'll be interesting for Tennessee. They lose Arthur Smith, their offensive coordinator. He's the new head coach of Atlanta. So is there any changes or wrinkles in that offense now? But can you imagine having Julio Jones and A.J. Brown? You double those guys up. You can't put 7 or 8 guys in the box. You've got Derrick Henry. Could it be another back that goes over 2,000 yards in back-to-back years? Another game we're going to look at is the Steelers and Bills. Almost 70% of the ticket count is on Buffalo. I think you can make a case that, it's Kansas City and then it's Buffalo. I think Buffalo is that good right now with that offense. They pick up Emmanuel Sanders in the offseason to go with Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Knox, just a talented team with Josh Allen. They're really, really good. The public loves that side. Pittsburgh, a little bit of a rebuild on the offensive line. Huge contract, problem right now with T.J. Watt. They've had those problems with Le'Veon Bell and some other wide receivers in the past. They need to get T.J. Watt in the fold. Even Ben Roethlisberger has been rallying for that right now. They've got a trio of good wide receivers too, but they're playing a Buffalo team that I think is right up there with Kansas City as one of the 2 or 3 best teams in football.
Yeah, and again, one of the names I think you look out for the Steelers, obviously we know all the receivers that they have, and Johnson, and I won't say Juju Smith-Schuster.
You said it right.
Claypool, but Najee Harris, I think the young running back that we're looking for out of Alabama, they're looking for a big season out of him. But I think, like you talked about, T.J. Watt, big deal here in week 1, whether he's going to play or not, to be able to get that pressure on Allen, that backside for the Steelers.
Steelers have always said, though, once the season starts, no negotiating. So if they don't get him signed,
they got
by
3
Sunday,
days to figure it out.
They really have to get that figured out pretty quickly. And he's a stud. You talk about a runner-up, I think, Defensive Player of the Year, back-to-back years, 15 sacks. You need this guy. And it's just strange that they don't negotiate with some of these stars. I know that a lot of guys have moved on from that team. T.J. Watt's a guy I think you really want to sign.
Yeah, and Steelers started off, I think, 10-0 last year before they ran into some hiccups. So they came out of the box really, really well. It's going to, like I said, it's going to be back on the defensive standpoint. Diggs hasn't played any of the preseason, didn't practice a whole lot. You still got Cole Beasley there, so the Bills have those offensive weapons that can really exploit Singletary and Moss coming out of the backfield as well. So the Steelers are going to have to stand up on defense here to stay in this game.
I think you can see a lot of points in this game, too. I really like Gabriel Davis, the way he played last year. You had John Smokey Brown, but now you have Emmanuel Sanders in that role. Josh Allen just has a lot of weapons at his disposal. Anxious to see how he plays. Another game we're going to touch on is Packers-Saints. Not a big disparity in ticket count there, but something to remember, guys. This game was going to be played in New Orleans, the Superdome. No change in date. Same day, just a different location. So if you bet this game prior to the site change, you still have action in this game. Much different line, of course, when you're in New Orleans and you have that crowd in the Superdome. It was hovering around 3. It is a little bit higher than that right now in favor of Green Bay. Rodgers, the whole soap opera there. No Breeze, no Michael Thomas for the Saints. It's Jameis Winston's team. Let's see how that plays out for the Saints this year.
Yeah, they're going to see a young man, Marquez Callaway, that Winston's going to look to hook up with, looks to throw those deep balls. Hopefully Jameis Winston's not the Jameis Winston that we saw in Tampa with all the interceptions. That'll kind of spell how the Saints are going to go here. If he's able to stay turnover free, they're going to stay in a lot of games. And obviously the Packers have all those offensive weapons back with Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams, and Aaron Rodgers is going to do what Aaron Rodgers does. So I think that not being in New Orleans, could potentially, going to Jacksonville is obviously not what the
Saints are the
Saints
home
wanted.
team, but it's not in their home stadium. Right.
But again, playing on natural grass maybe slows the Packers down a little bit here. We have seen some sharp action on the Saints, so there is some Saints money here.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting matchup too. I think it really benefited Winston last year. He basically redshirted. I mean, he was the starting quarterback for all those years in Tampa. He led the league in touchdown passes, but also in interceptions the year before. So he gets an opportunity to kind of sit behind Drew Brees, learn Sean Payton's system, kind of sit there. I know they said there was that battle between him and Taysom Hill, but he's clearly the guy. They said even in the locker room, he's been the guy. He's got the big arm. He can throw deep. Michael Thomas will probably be out for about 4 to 6 weeks. If the Saints can kind of weather that and get Michael Thomas back with Kamara and Callaway and really Jameis Winston settles into that role, I think with that defense, they're still a really competitive team in the NFC. Yeah, but Winston's the key.
You said it. Kamara is the key.
Right.
Catching him out of the backfield in the running game, if he can be the all-world running back that he has been over the last couple of years, it's going to bode well for the Saints.
Yeah, you just wonder how many games they might not be in the Superdome for. I think that's such a key because when you talk about, home field advantage in the NFL, I think there's probably about 4 to 6 sites that we always say. Seattle, the Superdome, Buffalo, Green Bay, Denver. There's teams that home field advantage is just so overwhelming. Superdome is definitely one of them. But we're going to come back in just a short break, and we're going to dive into a few more games in pro football for week 1.
Locals know the STN Sports App is the most trusted sports betting app in Nevada. They have convenient sign-up locations across Las Vegas, so download the STN Sports App today.
Download and get a bonus up to $500 when you sign up at any of our convenient locations.
Hey, gang, we're back again to dive into a few more of Week 1's pro football games. Chiefs-Browns, Jay, a rematch of the divisional playoff game last year, 22-17. Mahomes got hurt late in that game. Chad Henne had to come in and get a big first down, but it's a rematch of that game. 80% of the tickets are on the Kansas City Chiefs here. Rebuilt offensive line. It looks like a healthy Clyde Edwards-Helaire against a Browns team that's getting a tremendous amount of hype. You look at that offensive line, maybe one of the top 2 or 3 offensive lines in all of football. A great duo of running backs in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt who really complement each other. A healthy Odell Beckham, Austin Hooper, Jarvis Landry. A really good defense. Are they good enough, though, to compete maybe with the Bills and the Chiefs in the AFC? But they're a really fun team to watch. Chiefs are almost a touchdown favorite in this game.
Yeah, I think this comes down to Nick Chubb in this game. You talked about that Chief victory. I think Chubb only had 69 yards rushing on that divisional playoff game. So they need him to have a bigger game here to keep that Mahomes offense off the field to kind of stay in this game. But I think you're right. I think the Browns are a team that's going to be knocking on the door. I think they have a chance to win that Central and,
I agree
and overtake
with you, right?
the Ravens and the Steelers. They've got all the tools there. Just got to be able to put it all together, and a healthy Beckham and Landry will go a long way. And that defensive front is really, really good. It's just that matchup now with the kind of that rebuilt Kansas City offensive line, that's where this game's going to be won or lost.
Don't you think for Cleveland, we've talked about how good their offensive line is. We know that defense is good. What a duo of running backs. I mean, they complement each other so well. And now you get a healthy Beckham back to go with those wide receivers. I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on Baker Mayfield, though. Mayfield had some big games last year. He beat the Steelers in the playoffs. He had his moments. But I think for the Browns to be that team that wins the AFC North, I think you need Baker Mayfield to take that next step.
I don't think he's been really given that opportunity. When you have a Chubb and a Hunt and you want to be that ground game, keep the other offense off the field, win with your defense, that's where they've been. Maybe they give him a little bit more trust as he's gotten a little bit better here, and obviously healthy receivers are going to go a long way to determine can we throw the football. But I think you're going to see a commitment to the run game here, especially in a matchup against the Chiefs where you're trying to control the clock and limit the amount of offensive possessions that the Chiefs have.
And their coach, Kevin Stefanski, has another year under his belt. He was the offensive coordinator, though, for Minnesota. And we know with Delvin Cook, they love to pound the rock. So he's kind of doing the same thing now, but he has the luxury of having both Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So
yeah, and we'll see what the Chiefs, they lost some receivers there. They're going to be going with the young McCole Hardman and Pringle outside of Hill and Kelsey. And you talk about a healthy Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's not particularly healthy at this time. He's probably going to play in this game, but how healthy he really is, and we'll see whether Darrell Williams ends up playing. But, when you've got Mahomes in that offense, he seems to make miracles happen each and every play and finds a way to move the ball. So the Chiefs, that defense, or the Browns defense, has got a tough challenge ahead of them, but we'll see. I think it's going to come down to, are they able to run the football on Sunday?
Little chip on his shoulder, I would think, if you're Patrick Mahomes. Didn't play well in that first Sunday in February last year. Another game we're going to look at is Dolphins-Pats. Not a huge discrepancy or disparity in ticket count here, but it's such an intriguing matchup because you have the last two Alabama quarterbacks in Tua and Mac Jones. The line came down a little bit when Cam Newton was announced. Cam Newton was cut, and you were going to put Mac Jones in that lineup. I think it's a super intriguing matchup, though. You look at the way the Dolphins play defense. They went out and they got Will Fuller in the offseason. They're a really good team. You've got a lot of young weapons. If it's Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, who's on suspension, will miss the first game. Preston Williams. They draft Jalen Waddle. Myles Gaskin in the backfield in a top-notch defense. I think Tua needs to take that next step. But everything we've seen and read and we've heard about Mac Jones, he looks like the real deal. I mean, I'm not surprised that he won that job. They've got a couple of good tight ends, Damian Harris, Jacoby Myers, and Nelson Aguilar. But it's fun to watch Mac Jones against Tua in this game.
Yeah, and this game, the ticket count is not disparity, but there's a little bit of money. The money is on the Patriots. Obviously, a home game. Miami hasn't played particularly well when they travel up to New England. Obviously, that's a really difficult comparison. For several years, you had to travel up to New England and face Tom Brady. So a very, very different story here. But Mac Jones has got all the confidence in the world. He's got that offensive line that's going to really protect him. Najee Harris, not Najee Harris, but Damian Harris. Yeah. Everybody's predicting a really, really big year for him. I think James White's going to be really effective out of the backfield as well. And they've got another running back, Stevenson, the young man out of Oklahoma, who had an excellent preseason. That's going to be another weapon for them as well. So, again, I think that I saw a list yesterday that they were predicting the Patriots to be a top 5 offense this season, which is really intriguing because the receiving core outside of Jacoby Myers and a couple of those tight ends, you don't have those dynamic names in the receiving core.
But even with Brady, they weren't always a top 5 offense. They were efficient. They didn't turn the ball over, and they played good defense. But interesting with Mac Jones.
And that's one of the things I think in this game, with two young quarterbacks, how aggressive are these offensive coordinators going to be? Two really good defenses as well. I think that this could be a game where we see a little bit of a lower scoring game as these two offenses don't want their young quarterbacks to make a lot of mistakes, try and let the defenses win the game.
Definitely a fun game to watch, I think, with those two Bama quarterbacks. Now we're going to look at a game that has the widest discrepancy in ticket count. It's the 49ers on the road against Detroit. They're over a touchdown favorite. Almost 90% of the tickets are on the San Francisco 49ers. So bettors don't like Detroit. They clearly like the 49ers here. We know they've been kind of that hot and vogue team to make the playoffs, to win the NFC West, to win the Super Bowl. Not sure if it's Garoppolo or Lance. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Garoppolo to start. Young wide receivers and Samuel and Ayuk to go with Kittle. Two really good running backs in Mostert and Trey Sermon that we both like a lot. That defense needs to stay healthy. Detroit, you can make a case, is in a total rebuild right now, the lowest win total in the league outside of the Houston Texans. But the Niners are on the road here and over a touchdown favorite.
They have a chance, that defense. I think Sermon and Mostert, again, if these guys stay healthy, they're going to be incredible. Whether it's Garoppolo or Lance, I think that if you just find a guy that can manage the game, they have so many other weapons that those quarterbacks don't have to go out and win games. And obviously we kind of know where Detroit's at acquiring Goff. We'll see if Swift has been kind of on the mend here. We'll see if he gets into this game. They also have Jamal Williams, who they pick up from the Packers.
They have a new head coach and a new offensive coordinator, so a lot of changes.
Tyrell Williams, their receivers, but the money's been all on the Niners here, and I think we're going to be saying this just about every week that we need the Lions to pull an upset. Teaser's barking, I can hear him barking. The Lions are going to be one of his teams. Bet the dogs.
It might have to be dogs. A roar, Teaser, since it's the Lions.
Come on, Lions! I think that's going to be a cheer for the books just about every week, cheering for the Lions to stay in these games.
I think you look at Detroit's offense; they let Perryman go, so I think they have Cephas and Williams, really young wideouts. I think the key for Jared Goff's going to be having a really good rapport with T.J. Hawkinson. Hopefully Hawkinson can stay healthy and he becomes a big key there. Now we're going to go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just from a fantasy standpoint. I've seen a lot of articles that are saying Raheem Mostert is the start of the week. Get your points from him. I think he's a guy that's drafted a little bit later in drafts.
I think you can play Sermon too because they never stuck with just one guy. You would think last year. I think a lot of guys who had the Niners backfield in fantasy last year wanted to pull their hair out because you never knew for sure if it was Jeff Wilson or Coleman or McKinnon or Mostert. They were always interchangeable. But this year it looks like that two-headed monster of rookie Trey Sermon, who's just a beast. You look at what he did the last couple of games at the collegiate level and Mostert now. We're going to dive into the two primetime games. Sunday night, the Bears and the Rams. These two teams have played, I think, 4 times over the last 4 years, all 4 unders, yet we've seen the bets come in on the over in this game. It's Matt Stafford, handpicked by Sean McVay with that offense, with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Deshaun Jackson. They pick up Sony Michel, and arguably the best defense in football, anchored by Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, against a Bear team that has a new quarterback. And no, I'm not talking about Justin Fields. I'm talking about Andy Dalton, who didn't show a lot in the preseason. Matt Nagy, I think he's on the hottest seat of any coach in pro football. They're over a touchdown underdog here. That offense has to get untracked. I'm going on record saying if it's a close, low-scoring game at halftime, Justin Fields starts the second half of this game on Sunday night.
Well, I let the Matt Stafford era begin. Obviously, this was another huge move of the offseason, acquiring him, trading Goff, trying to make that move for Stafford. He's got the weapons around him. He loses Cam Akers, was a devastating offseason injury to their running back committee. Darrell Henderson, you talked about, they acquire Michelle. Normally McVay wants to run that ball. When you get a quarterback like Stafford, I think that they might, flip the script and be a little bit more of a passing offense, and obviously that bodes well for Cooper Kupp and Woods, and I think Tyler Higbee is going to be a big part of that tight end as well. And I think the Bears are running into a forest fire here. I think that place is going to be going nuts, and Stafford's first game, and a Detroit quarterback in Stafford that's really aware of what the Bears do.
Bears are familiar with him as well, though. On the flip side.
But not what McVay is going to do with him. So I think that this is a spot where we're going to see a lot of Ram money, and we'll be cheering, just like we're cheering for Detroit, we're going to be cheering for the Bears on Sunday night. I think
one of the reasons you've started to see this number tick up is that Eddie Goldman was hurt in practice. That's a big piece of that defense that might not play. Both Mac Quinn and Eddie Jackson are all banged up a little bit. Those are basically your 4 studs on defense, and they're all banged up, and you might be missing a couple of those guys. So we'll see how it plays out on Sunday night. We're going to come back in just a minute. We're going to touch on the big Monday night game in our backyard with the Raiders and Ravens and dive into some of the best college football games this week, guys.
Locals, here's how easy it is to start betting on games with the STN Sports App. They have sign-up locations across Las Vegas, so no matter where you are, you're less than 5 minutes away from getting started. So download the STN Sports App today.
Download and get a bonus up to $500 when you sign up at any of our convenient locations.
Hey, gang, we're back for our final segment of Bookends, and before we dive into the key college games this week, we have to talk about the big Monday night game at Allegiant Stadium between the Baltimore Ravens and our Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders played week 2 last year at home on primetime against the Saints, won that game, started the season 2-0, but this is their first game at home on primetime in this stadium with a crowd. The new Black Hole, Raider Nation. 58% of the tickets are on the Ravens. Not an overwhelming amount. I think it's a huge game for the Raiders, and it might be similar, Jay, to what we see with the Knights. And when it comes to game day, you start looking at the props, the ticket count, the money line, and there starts to be a home bias in favor of the Raiders. There's a ton of stuff on the board for this game, and it should be an interesting matchup. The numbers come down a little bit, but the Ravens are one of those teams that people think can win the Super Bowl against a Raider team right now that all of our props, if you look at to win the Super Bowl, to win the conference, to win the division, win totals, actually sit in 4th in the AFC West, behind the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos.
Yeah, the Raiders got an offense that should score. I mean, Carr, and I think Darren Waller's in line for an absolutely huge year. Ruggs, they've got the receivers there, and Jacobs coming out of the backfield. I just think that it's on the backside on that defensive end. Again, we've talked about this for so many teams, but can the Raiders slow these other offensive down to be able to stay in games? And you talk about that Ravens team being a Super Bowl hopeful. I think this is a bad spot. They've had we'll call it a tumultuous offseason of kind of injuries in losing J.K. Dobbins, one of the top running backs. So they're going to go with Gus Edwards and kind of a younger Tyson Williams coming out of the backfield there as well. But they also have some problems in the receiving core. Their receivers aren't healthy. I think we're going to see a heavy dose of Mark Adams.
Hollywood Brown and Rashad Bateman, their number 1 pick, are both out as well.
Yeah, so I mean, the Raiders, this is a good spot for the Raiders because the Ravens are kind of banged up. I mean, you're going to have to find a way to stop Lamar Jackson, to Mark Andrews. And the other thing
Sammy
that I think
Watkins
is really kind of working for the Raiders in this situation is the Ravens play next Sunday night at home against the Chiefs. So never want to say that there's a look-ahead situation in the NFL, especially for your opening game.
It does happen, though.
But I guarantee you the Ravens know that they've got the Chiefs at home next week and are somewhat looking forward to that game. And obviously from a home opening standpoint, this Raider Stadium, that Allegiant Stadium, is going to be really, really loud. It's going to be a home field advantage for the Raiders that they did not have in years past. And so hopefully that helps their defense in getting some more offensive offsides or some jumps and stuff like that. So I think we're going to see Raider money by the end of the week, and I think we'll be cheering for the Ravens.
And when we talk about that home field advantage, you think about last year, they were 6-2 on the road, 4-2 in the division. They really struggled at home, though. They were 2-6, and one of those games was week 2 on prime time against the Saints. They only won one game after that at Allegiant Stadium, but they will have fans, a new black hole again in Raider Nation, so hopefully that plays for the Raiders. Interesting to see. We talked about it now. 58% of the tickets are on the Ravens. How much that kind of changes by kickoff on Monday night?
I think it's going to flip. I think that we're going to see from a Vegas book standpoint, we're going to see this much like the Golden Knights, where we see a lot of home money. And obviously, if the Raiders play well and they start winning, we're going to start to see that even more.
Right, totally agree. Now we're going to jump into some college games. I think there's 3 really marquee key games for week 2 of the college slate. First, Iowa State, huge interstate rivalry.
Yeah, Iowa State. We don't talk about them from a big game of the week.
It is a big game.
Two teams don't make that conversation very often, but it's the first time. This is the 68th time these teams will be playing. It's the first time they're playing when they're both ranked, and they're both ranked in the top 10. Iowa State at 9, Iowa at 10. Iowa makes a big leap. They were 18 last week, jumping all the way to 10 after destroying Indiana last week. They really embarrassed Michael Penix, making his return to the field. Iowa was able to run the ball, but most importantly, that defense was able to really stop the run and stop Indiana from doing anything, which doesn't bode well for Iowa State, who's just over a field goal favorite in this game at home. They struggled last week on offense with a quarterback in Brock Purdy, who's a Heisman hopeful. Breece Hall, their running back, is a top All-American running back. They only beat Northern Iowa 16-10 last week. So again,
talking about a look
ahead situation.
Right,
obviously, they were looking at Iowa, but the bad part here for Iowa State is Breece Hall, their running back. That's who they want to go to. Iowa is the 3rd best team in the country since going back to last year at stopping the run. So Iowa State's going to have to do it through the air. Brock Purdy can do it. Under Matt Campbell, Iowa State's taken some big jumps, obviously ranked 9th in the country, but under Matt Campbell, they are 0-4 versus Iowa. So we'll see if he can finally get over the hump. They lost by 1 point, 18-17 back in 2019, the last time these guys played. But this is going to be a big game. Obviously, those people in Iowa going nuts, but Iowa has played well against Iowa State.
Another game I think is the Oregon-Ohio State game. 2 ranked teams again in this game. I think the big key for Oregon is that Kayvon Thibodeau might not play. They keep saying it's a game-time decision. He's projected to be the number 1 overall pick in the Pro Football Draft next year, which happens to be here in Vegas. He's a big part of that defense. He moves around. He goes from side to side. He puts pressure on the quarterback. I think Oregon really needs Thibodeau to play in this game. You think about Oregon, though. They struggled. They had a 21-6 lead against Fresno, barely won that game. Late in that game, Ohio State beat Minnesota in the opener. They did cover in that game. Their offense, I thought, looked really good. Defense, Minnesota was able to move the ball a little bit, but they're a little bit over a 2-touchdown favorite here.
Yeah, and Stroud looked good. Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud looked good in his first game against Minnesota. Yep. I think going home, getting that home atmosphere, he's got 2 incredible receivers in Olave and Williams. You said it. Oregon kind of struggled on that back side of things. Fresno was kind of able to exploit them. And if you look at their home and road splits, they're normally dominant at home. When they go on the road, it can be a little bit of a challenge. So this is a big 2-touchdown favorite, and we'll see if Ohio State can continue to put that offense up. They have to stop things on the back end. They didn't look particularly good against Minnesota. Minnesota was able to move the ball. I just don't know if Oregon has that running game the way Minnesota has.
As soon as Ibrahim got hurt, though, it kind of changed Minnesota. Last game we're going to look at is Washington, Michigan. Washington, who was ranked 9th, loses to Montana. They come in a game against Michigan. They're still a very talented team. This might be Jim Harbaugh's best team. They're a little under a touchdown favorite right now.
Well, if we were switching this third segment to our good, the bad, and the ugly, I would put Washington in the ugly category from last week. Obviously, losing 13-7 to Montana, not able to push a team around like that doesn't bode well as you're going to go to the big house and have to play Michigan and the bodies that they're going to have. But this Washington team was ranked 7th 7th in the country. So they're ranked 7th in the country for a reason. Again, classic look-ahead situation. So they want to redeem themselves, go into Michigan. This is the 5 o'clock game.
Right.
This is that marquee evening game for us. So early money has been on Michigan. Obviously, with Washington looking the way they did and losing to a small school. But we'll see if Washington kind of flips the script and has a different energy level and effort level this week.
Look ahead has kind of been the word of the day here, the words of the day that we've talked about in many cases. But guys, again, a great schedule in pro and college football. Don't forget, get signed up for both LMS contests. Saturday for college, 8 p.m. is the deadline. Sunday, it's 9 a.m. the deadline. Don't forget, guys, and also STN Sports. We still got a big bonus going on.
Yep, 10% up to $500 on all new signups. So get signed up for STN Sports today. And one other tidbit, I thought it was a cool, interesting kind of game in the week that you wouldn't normally look at. But LSU is playing McNeese State. Not a game that you would target.
What's interesting about that game?
But LSU's head coach, Ed Orgeron, will be facing his son, Cody Orgeron, who's the quarterback for McNeese State. So a father-son duo. I don't think we see that very often.
There's another son of Ed Orgeron who's on LSU's coaching staff. So Cody's going against his dad and his brother.
So a family affair down there in Louisiana, and we'll hope that comes out. And maybe something to look for in taking McNeese State as maybe dad.
A huge underdog.
Maybe dad doesn't want to run the score up on his son or the team there. So, they got embarrassed kind of last week at UCLA. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on down at LSU there with the hurricane and them having to be out in Houston and make a long trip to the West. And UCLA pulled a big upset, but LSU coming back to play the small school, so see what they can do in that family affair.
Yep, should be a fun game to watch. Again, guys, it's Yay Sportsbooks. Yay you guys, because football is back. It's week 1 of the pro football, week 2 of college. Get signed up for STN Sports, LMS. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thanks.